Hello, good morning, afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Conversation With, short, impactful discussions with CX leaders and innovators. Today, we're going to highlight hassle and friction in the customer journey. And for those of you who don't know, a stat from PwC, 32% of customers stop doing business with a brand they love after only one bad experience. And that's a brand they love. Again, imagine the level of attrition for consumers that don't care for your brand. So to tackle hairy, ugly CX moments, we're fortunate to be joined by Adam Toporek, the founder of CTS Service Solutions, which is a consultancy that provides organizations with real-world, customer-centric solutions through workshops and advanced training. He's the author of the popular blog, Customers That Stick, and author of Be Your Customer's Hero. Adam, how are you today?
I am fantastic, Terrence. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to talk to someone who's down in perfect weather, at least this time of year in Orlando.
For a couple more weeks, it's perfect.
Yeah, and then it's AC hunting for a few months?
Exactly. It's sauna time.
Right.
Well, the good news is the dogs calm down when it gets hot.
Yeah, right, exactly. Adam, so it's been a wild 13 months. How have you been learning, staying engaged? Have you done anything new, challenged yourself in a new way?
I did a big challenge. So I've always been a reader, so I've always just continued education, reading, things like that. I have tried on a few occasions to learn Spanish in my life, and I have, quite frankly, failed miserably in every attempt. So I had a few keynotes right before the pandemic booked for Buenos Aires and Mexico City. So I went all in. It all happened sort of right at the beginning during the pandemic, and I've been learning Spanish since February of 20. And I did it a little different this time. I did books and audiobooks and all that, and that just never really worked. But I found a service where I actually talk to people. And it's fascinating. I have conversations, every week and in different countries. And not only, it's been super rewarding because I've actually finally learned the language somewhat. If you're a native speaker, please be nice to me and go slow. But yeah, it's been amazingly rewarding because I've actually made friends all across the world.
That's great. Yeah, and obviously immersing yourself in it, forcing yourself to use the language, right, and to respond.
Yeah, and doing something that I think we'll end up talking about in a customer service context was having a human connection to it, having having conversations with people as opposed to sitting there and learning vocabulary.
Yeah, it's easy to ignore the Duolingo owl, but not as easy to ignore a person, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So Adam, I want to put you in the shoes of a consumer. Tell us about a memorable experience you've had lately as a consumer.
So I will say one of the things I've also been doing. Well, I think we talked about this because you're up in Boston. I went to Berkeley for a year a long time ago, so I'm a guitarist. And I bought a guitar, actually a couple, from Sweetwater. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So, and what an
I have
incredible...
one right here, too.
Oh, do you? Oh,
I don't play it well, but yeah, I have one right behind me.
Fantastic. I mean, well, their service has been amazing, and they truly blend digital, and this is something we can talk about later as well. But they truly blend digital and human service almost seamlessly. And if you ever buy a guitar from them, one of the things they do is they send you the pictures of your guitar, not the one from the catalog. They do a full photo shoot of the actual, above a certain price range, right? I don't think they do it for like the starter guitars.
Yeah.
But even like a middle price range, it's not just like really nice ones. And they literally send you like almost a 360 view, all these different pictures of the guitar you're going to receive before you receive it. They communicate throughout the whole process because you're like, oh no, is my guitar on the way? Is it safe? Is it going to be crushed by the shipper? And it's been fantastic. And spoken with them a few times, and it all seamlessly worked together. It's just an incredible experience.
And have you learned anything new about yourself as a consumer in the past 12 months?
New. I've reinforced. Go
ahead.
I'm old enough. There's not that much new. I've reinforced an old something I already knew about myself, which is as a consumer. I have very little patience for companies that waste my time anymore. And I never really have had that because the one thing I really focus on in my life is my time and the value of my time. I'd rather somebody waste a small amount of money than my time. I don't show that lack of patience usually because one, that's my natural disposition, and I'm also, being in the business, very empathetic towards frontline service reps. So even if they are wasting my time, I don't necessarily show my lack of patience, but I feel it, and I think every year I'm a little bit more protective of my time. And, I know we're going to talk about hassle. Obviously, that's how we titled this. And that's,
Yeah.
to me, I found as a consumer, I feel that on the other end. Like I truly feel when somebody's hassling me or making me jump through hoops for something that I really shouldn't have to.
Yeah, and it's a funny point to make, especially in the past, as you said, 12, 13 months when convenience, speed were super impressive by some, right? So to
Oh yeah.
patience, how do you expect to have patience at all? You can get it faster from someone else, right?
Oh, 100%. And that's, we've been talking about that for years in the CX world, the Amazon effect, right? Just the having to compete with clicking a button and getting something immediately,
Right.
or now Netflix. So it is, if you have a journey in which there is a lot of friction, you are starting out at a competitive disadvantage, even if the things that are setting that pace aren't in your industry.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So let's get to the topic at hand, the impact of hassle and friction on the customer experience. Adam, maybe to kick it off, what role does emotion play when it comes to understanding customers and what they want out of businesses?
So to me, emotion dictates experience. So when I break down customer experience, it's you can get very complicated. It gets very complex and complicated. I basically look at the goal of customer experience is to generate positive emotion and prevent negative emotion, because we know that emotion is going to drive experience results.
Right.
So Temkin did a study and they found that people that they basically compare people that had a positive emotional experience versus a negative emotional experience. And those that had a positive emotional experience were 15 times more likely to recommend, right? That's NPS, likelihood to recommend. Now, that's 15 times. That's not 15%. That's 1,500%, right?
Yeah.
8 times more likely to trust. How important is that? Even more so in the last year. And here's the thing, we're going to blow it, right? We're going to get it wrong either because we didn't execute or because we didn't meet expectations. They had a different expectation.
Right.
Positive emotional experience versus a negative one, 6 times more likely to forgive.
Hmm.
So emotion can drive incredible results from an experience perspective. And I usually talk about these two studies in tandem. So there's also a Forrester has like a customer emotion matrix. And I won't try to describe a matrix, but the short version is the one thing they add. It basically, positive emotion, you grow the share of wallet, and risk share wallet, you grow affinity, you grow retention. One thing they delineate between is intensity. And that's a huge, huge part when we're talking about emotion. There's something called the peak end rule. I'm sure you've heard of, probably had some people mention. But the idea that when you have a truly peak emotion, whether that's positive or negative, when you feel something really strongly, that tends to be what defines the experience. And depending, you mentioned that stat from PwC at the opening, right? I would venture to say that the people that loved a brand and left after one experience, it was probably a pretty emotionally resonant negative experience. It probably wasn't like a little hassle, right?
Yeah. It was a huge pain. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Like,
so Adam, tell me about the micro moments of a customer journey and the impact throughout.
so micro moments are interesting because, we just talked about there's a difference between intensity and intensity, right? But they still matter for a couple of reasons. One, because they can add up. Two, because you can still be annoyed. You don't have to be enraged. You can still be bothered and annoyed and have a negative experience. It may not be enough to like define your entire relationship, but if that is a regular thing, if you consistently have friction, think of a doctor's office you go to that is just the waiting room is just it's always the same, right? I mean, we know patient care is a problem. There's many great ones, but you go, it's just a terrible experience all the time, but it's your doctor and you're going to deal with it.
Sports Illustrated from 1995 is the only thing to look at, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And customer service training for the staff, either non-existent or from 1995.
Right.
And so they can add up. But the other thing is, and we've all experienced this if we've been in business, is we don't know which small moments are going to be big moments. We don't know. I have a whole framework called the 7 service triggers, triggers being hassled, being ignored, being abandoned. And the point is everybody has different triggers. There's some common ones we all have, like being ignored. Nobody wants to be ignored.
Yeah.
But there are individual ones, right? Something's going to set you off that doesn't set me off and things like that. And by smoothing out the moments, making sure they all matter, we're less likely to trigger some of those bigger moments. And at the minimum, we're also just creating a smoother, hassle-free experience, which we already talked about is the expectation now.
Yeah, and so it really is about those micro moments, as you said, smoothing them out, making sure that there is no hassle and friction throughout them, because that's of course when we can expect the emotion to really jar up again, right? Either in a positive or a negative way.
Yeah, 100%. Because and the catch is, positive emotion's a little more difficult when we're talking about friction because like that's the baseline, the table stakes,
Mm.
as we like to say in business, right? I
Mm.
mean, they expect frictionless now.
Right.
There may be a context where they don't, and you can wow them if you move to another city and the DMV is like run like an Amazon, like it's like amazing, right? And I've had that. I've actually gone to a DMV, like they were for the DMV. They were on top of it. They did a great job,
Mm.
and that's because the baseline there is different. If the baseline is ordering something off a digital app,
Mm.
and they're an Amazon Prime customer, you're going to have your A game, right?
Yeah, and a topical example that I'll use, similar to your DMV, I actually had a pleasant experience with my taxes this year. It seemed too easy, and it was because there's a lot of jokes going around these days about, for tax season, you have to essentially guess how much you owe and then make that payment, and if you don't do it, they penalize you, right? There's a big long joke about that. But yeah, I had an experience that was so easy, I began to second guess if I was doing something wrong or if I was being scammed.
You're like, this cannot be possible.
Yeah, it doesn't seem real. This couldn't be them. All right,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was a good thing, and I haven't found a DMV that I've appreciated yet, though. So,
well, we were. Wow. Go ahead. Sorry, I was going to say, Terry, real quickly. We were talking offline about receiving the vaccine.
Yeah.
Because our expectations for government are pretty low as a rule, right? I mean, government service. I had the most amazing experience. I was blown away. It was literally a perfect experience. Like nothing was wrong. And I had such low expectations, I have to admit, not that I'm down on government. I know a lot of departments and a lot of governments do deliver great service, but let's face it, over our lifetimes, we've experienced less than that. It was amazing to see, right? Because my baseline, but it was good for anybody.
Right.
Like it was good for a private company. It was they did an incredible job in my county.
Yeah, and a lot of, I'll say, over communicating, which is good too, right? Of course, that's a necessity. All right, so let's talk about empathy in the customer journey. How do we deliver on that going forward in 2021?
So empathy is interesting because empathy is almost always individual, right? I mean, when you're expressing empathy, that's really a one-to-one thing. But so the question is, when we're looking at the journey, how do we approach building in something that's very personal and individual into the journey? Part of it is exactly what we're talking about. It's a little, it sort of melds with that hassle thing, which is looking for the points where we're likely to create a negative emotional response.
Sure.
So that's number one. From a planning perspective, where are we likely to have a problem? The next thing, and this is a huge factor in hassle and a huge factor in empathy, and I do have a dog in this hunt because we do customer service training, but is train team members. Because if you do not train your teams, and I always say, it's anybody with a good personality and decent communication can do, sort of positive, proactive customer service.
Right.
Where we fall apart is when we have to react to a problem, right? When we're not designed to get cussed at, yelled at, screamed at, and go, well, thank you, ma'am. I'd love to help you with that. All right, that's not how we're wired. We have our own emotional responses. We have our own sort of instinctual responses. So training is huge because one of the things and one of the cornerstones of our training, and this goes back to Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, his great story about on the subway. I don't know if we want to tell it here, but it's this idea you don't know your customer's story.
Right.
You don't when somebody's sitting across from you and they're angry or they're upset. You don't know what they've been through. You don't know if their boyfriend just broke up with them that morning, or they just had a bad doctor's report for their mom. Right? You don't know any of these things, and empathy is trying to understand those things. Not that you're going to okay, what's going on in your personal life, right?
Right.
But it's understanding that we don't know what's happening with somebody. 95% of the time, if they are yelling at you, you are a frontline representative. It's not personal. Right. It's not about you. It's about something that happened, and often it's about what's going on with them, or the scale of the reaction is about what's going on with them.
Mm,
So empathy is, trying to understand somebody else's position, but from a standpoint of experience and how do you build that in, one, it's looking for those areas, and then it's two, making sure your team is trained, because as we talked about emotion, here's what I will say: the human moments almost always matter more.
right.
We're just wired for each other. So if you have a customer journey with 10 digital touch points, and assuming none of them were horribly hassle, a huge hassle that enraged somebody,
Right.
the time they talk to a human is going to matter the most,
Mm,
positive or negative. It's just going to have more resonance, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So, Adam, how do we integrate the digital and human connection to create that amazing CX then?
Well, that's interesting. So I do like to talk about digital integration, even though we talk about digital transformation a lot, because
Yeah.
one of the things is we're talking about using technology in a lot of cases to replace human interaction,
Mm,
right? So
mhm,
the first thing is trying to figure out how to make the technology itself more human.
right.
That it is a little, you're in the industry, I'm in the industry. What is happening with AI right now is incredible. And where we're going to be in 5 years is a little bit, if you've watched too many Terminator movies like me, it's a little bit freaky, right?
Yeah, concerning. Right.
Yeah, it's learning incredibly, and you can actually talk to a robot and not know you're talking to one if you have a very simple request.
Mm,
And so part of it is taking the technology and trying to make it more human.
mhm,
And we can talk about, there's some sort of ethics to whether you identify it as a robot or not, and I have opinions on that. But the second aspect is using the technology to make the human interactions richer. Okay, because we're still going to have the human interactions depending on the industry and depending on the customer's journey. And technology can be either the greatest sort of reducer of hassle or the greatest creator of hassle.
mm,
Because it's great when the app works. It's not that great when the app doesn't work.
right.
Right? It's
Yeah.
great when I can find what I want on the app. It's not that great when I can't find what I want on the app. It's great when I have a nice, well-trained customer service representative trying to help me. It's not great when that customer service representative can't find any of the information he or she needs to actually help me.
Mm,
So technology, when we talk about this idea of integration, is melding it throughout the entire journey, right? Making sure that it is actually creating a great experience when it is the experience and supporting a great experience when it's in the background.
mm. And you mentioned your opinion on being upfront, whether it is AI or a bot in that scenario. Am I allowed to ask your opinion, Adam?
Sure, absolutely, 100%. I'm here for it. Yeah, I think you should identify it. I don't think you're a bad company if you don't. I don't have a
Right.
like huge moral like problem if you don't. I do
Yeah.
think you should. And even if it's something like Alice bot, right? You don't have to be like, this is a bot, a legal disclaimer.
Right.
Just something that says it's not Alice, it's Alice
Right.
bot, right?
I'm in violent agreement with you because I feel like if I think I'm talking to a human and I find out I'm not, that's a very irritating scenario for me. Like, you can't even
Exactly.
help me, right?
Exactly. I think it sets the expectation. One, particularly right now, just even putting aside ethics, just talking about the experience. And to your point,
Right.
right now the bots aren't that good. Your event, if you have anything below sort of above sort of a level 2 question, you're going to have to get transferred to a human. And going, oh no, that wasn't a human. I'm now waiting. Right. To your
Yeah.
point, yeah, that's not a great experience.
So the theme of being a hero comes up a lot in your work. Obviously, your book, as I mentioned before, Be Your Customer's Hero and your hero class customer experience. What does this mean and how can it help other organizations?
So in the book, and this is interesting because the book came out. You can sort of see it in the background. I think it's out of frame a little.
Yeah.
The book came out in 2015,
Right.
and at the end of the book, I sort of like, what is a hero class experience? What does it mean to be hero class? Which is sort of how we frame it.
Mm,
And I had three basically steps. As one is meet and whenever possible exceed expectations.
mm.
Uh, Two, provide a hassle-free, frictionless experience, which we're talking about today.
Yeah.
And three, and this is the hardest one for me and pretty much everyone on earth, do both of the above consistently,
Mm.
which is the challenge, of
Right.
course. And Now I would say, I've said this a few times, if I wrote the book today, I would add a fourth one, and that is create a positive, emotionally resonant experience.
Hmm.
Now, I talked about emotion when I was writing Hero some, but in the ensuing years, in the 5 or 6 years since Hero came out, the research has come out. It's really shown how
Yeah.
powerful emotion is, and I've really started to focus on it more and understand how much it defines experience. So if I were to release version 2, I would add the create a positive, emotionally resonant experience to that.
Hmm. And my last question for you, Adam, is a little off track, of course, but looking forward into 2021, do you have any future highlights that you're going to be looking for in this year as it pertains to customer experience? Maybe key rollouts or features or functionality. Maybe it is largely due to AI. What are you kind of looking for in this year, 2021, as we come out of this, we are still in the digital transformation?
Yes. Well, I don't know that there will be anything particularly new as much as I think we're just going to see a continuation of 2020, which is, this has been, the pandemic was essentially, putting kerosene on processes that were already happening.
Right.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
the companies that were already digitally transforming, they were in a great position because they're like, okay, we were already doing this. Now we just have 5 times the budget because we have to.
Right.
Boom, let's go. So that those companies were able to pivot immediately, and you were able to see that, right? And then I think that's just going to continue. I think both that digital transformation, including AI, and just sort of more basic digital transformation, will just continue to ramp up. We're going to go back, so to speak, to some things, but we all know not everything will go back to the way it was. There will be more hybrid experiences. There will be more digital replacement of in-person experiences, and that digital transformation is going to have the budget, and it's going to have the desire, the need, the demand, and it's going to just keep going, I think.
Yeah. So Adam, last question for you, survey question we're giving to all of our live stream guests.
Uh-oh.
Are you going to buy your groceries in the grocery store or pick them up moving forward?
We do both now, but so it's really a question of the percentage for me. I would say I will say this: we're going to have a much greater percentage of delivery than we did before the pandemic.
Right.
The biggest catch I've found, no offense to all the people delivering, is they sort of get you on the produce when you don't go get it yourself.
Yeah, I have seen that. Very fair point.
The fruits and veggies, you don't seem to get the best ones.
No, yeah, a lot of brown. Yep.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the percentage has definitely increased permanently in our household.
Mm. Well, Adam, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us today. Adam Toporek, the author of the blog Customers That Stick and Be Your Customer's Hero, here to talk about the impact of hassle and friction on customer experience. Fritz, thank you for putting that up. Go check out customersthatstick.com. Adam, it was a pleasure. Thanks again for the time.
Oh, thanks so much, Terrence. I appreciate it.
Take care. Next week, we got Dan Gingish, the Chief Experience Officer at the Experience Maker. International known CX advisor and consultant joins us at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Talk then. Thank you all for joining.